Good Monday morning. Hope everybody had a great weekend. We talked last week about genetics, so we're going to continue talking about that today. If you don't have it in front of you, you might want to grab your science notebook and a piece of paper. It can be, you can do it in your science notebook, so it can be lined. If you'd rather do our drawings today on blank paper, that's fine. Or if you have a little mini whiteboard you want to use or a poster board, it doesn't matter, whatever you want to do, but make sure you have something to draw with and draw on, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So one of our, or a couple of our other vocab words that we haven't mentioned since day one are dominant and recessive traits. So if you look at the definition of those words, you know that a dominant trait is one that is almost always present. It's a stronger trait, so it normally comes out in that person or that plant or that animal. A recessive trait is going to be the opposite. So it's going to be a trait that is usually hidden and not seen, but that doesn't mean that that person isn't carrying it inside of them. So you'll see how that works out here in just a minute. So what I did and what I want you to do in your notebook is go ahead and add these lists. So don't worry about this name yet. Okay, we're going to get to him in just a minute. But go ahead and have two sections, one for dominant traits and one for recessive traits. Sorry, I kind of messed up there, but you know what I'm saying. Okay, so that's traits. These are just a few of the more, I guess, important ones or ones that we think of. So when you think of a trait that is being passed down to you from a parent or from family members up your family tree, these are some things that you might get. Now, most of the time, you're going to end up getting a trait that's on the dominant side. Sorry, my dog's barking. A trait that's on the dominant side, because that's what that means. It's dominant. Okay, it's more likely to come out in you. Okay, so some of our dominant traits are tallness. So being tall is more dominant than being short. Having darker eyes, so brown eyes, hazel eyes, is more dominant than having light eyes like blue or green. Having darker hair is more likely and more dominant than having lighter hair like blonde or red hair. And then having darker skin is more dominant than having lighter skin. Okay, so does this mean that everybody in the whole world are tall with dark eyes and dark hair and dark skin? Well, no, obviously not. So somehow this hidden recessive gene comes out in certain people, like me. I have blue eyes. So we're going to talk about how that works in just a minute, okay? But normally if one of your parents has one of these traits, you're more likely to get it, okay? Because these are dominant. They're more likely to be seen. Okay, so before we get into talking about people, we need to remember that we're not always just talking about people. We can be talking about plants and animals as well. So that's why I want to talk about Gregor Mendel. So he is the father of genetics, which means he didn't make it up because they were already existing, but he was a scientist who thought, there's something to this genetics thing, and I want to figure it out. So he actually used pea plants to do some of his experiments with. So this is where your drawings come in. So you can use your notebook if you want to, or you can use your paper. All right, I'm just going to use the bottom of this poster, and hopefully I'll have enough room. All right, so what he did is he took I'm just going to do no fancy drawings here, okay? He took a tall pea plant and he mixed it with a short pea plant. Okay? And he thought, I wonder what kind of offspring of pea plants I might get if I mix something that's dominant with something that's recessive. Tall and short. Well, what do you think that first generation of pea plants will be? Dominant, right? Because that's what that means. Dominant means that it's probably going to show up because it's a much stronger gene. So tallness is a much stronger gene. So then he ended up with 3 tall pea plants. So we're going to draw those out. I might put mine down while I'm drawing. You draw with me. Okay, so we're going to draw 3 tall pea plants. Again, no artsiness required. So they're all tall. Make sure you label. Okay, so here's their offspring. So you mix a tall, dominant pea plant with a short, recessive pea plant, blah, and you get all tall pea plants because that's dominant. But inside of each of these plants is a hidden recessive short trait, because you can kind of think of this as like a mom and a dad. So you have a mom and a dad and all the babies are tall, but that doesn't mean they didn't get some gene from their mom, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to label. So we've done our tall and short, but we also want to do a D for dominant and an R for recessive. So I'm going to label all of them. Okay, so not only is this tall, but it's dominant. Not only is this short, but it's recessive. But you get one gene from both. So each one of the offspring are going to have a D and an R. One from this one from this one. It's just they're all tall because tallness is a dominant trait. You with me? Okay. So now what happens if I take 2 of these pea plants and mix them together? Take a minute and think. I'm going to draw it out for you, but maybe you already know. So he had 3 more plants pop up after he mixed the 2 tall plants together. Be thinking what you think's going to happen. My drawings are not on point today. Not even close. Alright, so we had 3 offspring from those 2 plants. And look what he got. So he mixed the 2 tall plants together, and he got 2 tall and a short. Well, where did this guy come from? How in the world did he get a short plant from 2 tall plants? Not only are tall plants dominant, but there's 2 of them. That doesn't make any sense. Well, it does, because the only time that a recessive trait is going to show is if both parents give it. Okay, so both parents have to give off a recessive trait. It's the only time. So if it's a dominant and a recessive, forget it. It's going to be dominant. If it's 2 dominants, definitely. But if it's 2 recessives, you could get one of these things. Short, light eyes, light hair, light skin. So let's take a look and see. Now, I mix these 2 together. Well, each one of these has a dominant and a recessive trait, even though the recessive was hidden. Remember? So when they mix together, they might have mixed a D and an R together to make this one. And if it's dominant, one dominant trait and it's over, he's going to be tall. So this one's a D and an R. This one might be a D from this one and a D from this one. 2 dominants, so he's definitely going to be tall. I'm saying he, they're not really he and she's, but just to help, okay? But this one over here must have gotten, and let me do a different color to make it pop. Yeah. This one right here must have gotten this hidden recessive gene and this hidden recessive gene from those 2 plants, and he is Recessive. So the only time that you are going to get one of these recessive traits is if you get that same trait from your mom and your dad, or in this case, both P plants. You have to have two R's for it to work. Okay? All right, I hope this makes sense. If you have questions, email me on, or you can just email me, or you can send me a message on Google Classroom. I will talk about this more tomorrow, and we're going to do more drawings, but with people. So hopefully that will help too. So just something to think about. Okay, here, I'll put this back up for just a second, but you should be able to see everything. So those are the things you need in your notebook. And then here's our drawings for today. Okay, remember, we started with a tall and a short. They had all talls, but each one of these tall plants had a hidden recessive gene from this one. Then when I mixed them together, some of them got one of the dominant traits, but then this guy right here, he's the special one. He got the R and the R from that was hidden from both of these plants, and he became short. Okay. You are more than welcome to play around with these. If you want to go ahead and practice with people, if you think you can do that and you want to use some of these traits, that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. But if you want to play around this evening, feel free to do that. If you want to practice with the pea plants and mix and match and try and label, and maybe send it to me in a picture and ask if you think it's right or not, I can help you with that. Okay? All right, so I know that one's a little bit more difficult, and it's hard because I'm not there to answer your questions in person. But again, if you have any questions whatsoever, email me and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. I'll try to do it maybe on the next video, or I'll probably just email you back on Google Classroom or regular email. Okay? All right. Have a good afternoon.